Joining us now, a guy who's a fantastic debater all throughout his career, Senator Ted Cruz, who's got a brand new book out. It is racing up the charts. It's called One Vote Away, How a Single Supreme Court Seat Can Change History. And Senator, I feel so unproductive. During COVID, you wrote this when we were shut down, right?
I did. This spring and summer, I sat in my living room with my laptop and decided to write the book. It was a story that needed to be told, and the timing, I planned to come out right before the election. I didn't realize at the time that we would have a Supreme Court vacancy and be in the midst of an epic battle in Washington to fill it. So it has proven, I think, especially timely.
Senator, when we looked at the battle for the Kavanaugh seat, everyone, we'll go talking about the high school yearbook. You hear how many questions started? What did you mean when you signed the yearbook? Talk about Ralphing. What is Ralphing? When you rented that bus and went to Fenway Park, was there beer on the bus? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. In your research, have we ever gone through something as juvenile as that? And talking about the Kavanaugh hearing, of course.
It was ugly, and it really was. It had become the theater of the absurd. The Democratic base demands that they go after any Republican nominee. But what they did to Kavanaugh was ridiculous. And, he had two young daughters sitting behind him, listening to them drag him through the mud, drag his character through the mud. They began to surface these fantastical allegations of wild parties in high school in D.C. that had no basis in anything, but they would repeat them. I think it reached the point of idiocy when Cory Booker stepped forward and had his "I am Spartacus" moment, which was clearly much more about presidential politics in Iowa than actually doing your job on the Judiciary Committee. And given that, and by the way, this is not the first time they've done that. They did it to Robert Bork before that. They did it to Clarence Thomas before that. They did it to Sam Alito before that. And I fully expect them to try with anything they can find. I met with Judge Barrett a couple of days ago, and I somewhat tongue-in-cheek told her, they're looking right now for somebody in third grade who has something mean to say about you.
Senator, I actually thought, and I didn't get to the president. He was on with us last week on this show. I actually thought of saying, are you sure she wants this? I didn't know. After the Kavanaugh situation, and knowing that she's a mom of 7, already has a great job and a lot of respect, number one in Notre Dame, would you blame someone to say, skip me?
Well, look, it would be a perfectly reasonable decision for someone to make, and it is, you are putting your life into a blender, and you're subjecting your kids. I actually, when she and I talked, that was something we talked about a bit, is I was talking to her. She has 7 kids, including a number who are quite young. And I was really just talking to her about how her kids were holding up with everything that was happening. I mean, a month ago, she had a quiet life in Indiana. She was a law professor. She was a federal judge. But, walking down the street, nobody would recognize her. And suddenly she's in the midst, the glaring light and the attacks. Now, one of the things I told her, which I think gave her comfort, I said, look, you need to know right now there are literally millions of Americans and people all over the world who are praying for you, who are praying for your family, who are lifting your family up, who are praying a hedge of protection around you. And I'll tell you, she has, I believe, a real inner strength and inner peace. And we talked about it because I've got young kids. My girls are 9 and 12, and they've endured when folks take shots at me, and sometimes even at them. It's not easy for kids, and they didn't sign up for it. And so I just tried to talk to her a little bit about that and how you make it through. But it's definitely, it is an ugly price of public service.
And you talk about one vote away, how this country could have been so different if a different judge was there at a different time, if a different president wasn't there to nominate a different judge, and the different courses we've taken our country, which brings me to today. And I want to tell you this. This is not, what Chuck Schumer's about to say is not a veiled threat. I actually think it's their game plan. They know they can't stop besides if something unforeseeable happens. They cannot stop Amy Coney Barrett from being an associate justice. But if it happens, this is what Chuck Schumer says is going to happen. Cut 28.
On D.C. and Puerto Rico, particularly if Puerto Rico votes for it, D.C. already has voted for it and wants it. I'd love to make them states.
Okay.
And as for the filibuster, I'm not busting my chops to become majority leader to do very little or nothing. We are going to get a whole lot done. And as I've said, everything is on the table.
Senator, if they take the White House and Senate and hold the House, is Chuck Schumer serious?
Deadly serious. Now, they were going to do all of that before the Supreme Court vacancies, and so this is not an escalation. This is the fact that the hard left, the radical left, is driving the Democratic Party. So if they take the Senate, the first thing they do, I believe, will be ending the filibuster. And they'll do it. They have the votes. They'll do it. It will be gone. What that means is the minority in the Senate can then no longer stop whatever radical agenda they're trying to force through. The other thing he mentioned, statehood for the District of Columbia, statehood for Puerto Rico. I think that they will do that as well. And their reason is very simple. In their calculation, they believe that they would elect 4 new Democratic senators. So that if we start in January, say, with 50 Democrats, their plan would be to end the year with 54 Democrats. And it's all about, it's a crass political calculation about entrenching their power. And the big threat that all of that sets up is then packing the Supreme Court, increasing the number of justices in the court to 11 or to 13. And I think there's a very real possibility they would do that. I think their extreme base wants it. You know, we had a Democratic president try it in the past, FDR, and at the height of his power, and his own party, the Democrats, told him no, that was too far, that was politicizing the court. Brian, I don't think these Democrats today would say no. I think they would take that step, which would be incredibly destructive to the independence of the judiciary and the integrity of the court.
And the way I understand it, Senator, that when FDR did threaten to do that, maybe he didn't get it, but he got what he wanted because he threatened to do it.
Well, there's an old phrase that you learn in law school called the switch in time that saved 9. Which is that the court had been ruling, striking down a number of big New Deal programs as unconstitutional. FDR pushed his court-packing plan, and one of the justices who had been voting to strike them down switched his position and began voting on the other side. And that's often referred to as the switch in time that saved 9, because they say that's why the packing plan failed. I think it failed because the Democratic Party recognized it was an abuse of power. You don't have Democrats willing to say that anymore. There's really, when they're willing to smear and slime families and small children, and when they're willing to any means are justified by the ends they're fighting of radical socialism, and that's an unfortunate change in today's Democratic Party.
Yeah, by the way, Senator Ted Cruz, our guest, great way to kick off this hour. One Vote Away is the name of his book, How a Single Supreme Court Seat Can Change History. So the President of the United States had debate. You know what it's like to go against the president. He pulls no punches to the point where you guys weren't even speaking for a while. And, man, that seems like a long time ago. But you've healed the wounds and you're working together. When you watch the president come out for 90 minutes is hot. He had over 100 interruptions. Joe Biden had 67 of the debate. What did the president do wrong?
Well, I think there was too much yelling and too much interrupting. And, as you mentioned, I work very, very closely with the president. In the book, One Vote Away, I talk at considerable length about the conversations the president and I have had about the Supreme Court, and in particular, about all 3 of the vacancies that have happened, the Gorsuch vacancy, the Kavanaugh vacancy, and this vacancy. And in all 3 instances, I told the president he raised and pressed with some seriousness whether I would accept the position on the court. And all 3 times I told him no, that I did not want to serve on the court, that I wanted to stay in the political fight, that I wanted to be doing what I'm doing right now, which is leading the fight in the Senate to get Judge Barrett confirmed. But that's one of the things the book does, is take you inside those discussions. And then it also takes you really inside the Supreme Court. before I was a senator, my career was as a Supreme Court litigator, and so I argued cases in front of the Supreme Court for a living. And so the book addresses the biggest constitutional rights we have: free speech, religious liberty, the Second Amendment, U.S. sovereignty, elections and democracy. And it takes you inside the big landmark cases. Bush versus Gore, I was part of the legal team representing George W. Bush, and it tells you the war stories. It tells you what was going on. It brings them alive to you. And it's designed, Brian, so you don't have to be a lawyer, you don't have to be a constitutional expert, but you can understand how on issue after issue after issue, our fundamental rights, the landmark cases were decided 5-4, which means we are one vote away from seeing those rights stripped away. And what the book does is really underscore the stakes at the Supreme Court, but also in the 2020 election, and also in the battle we are having right now today over Judge Barrett. All of them, this book really helps you understand it in, I think, a clear, fun, readable way.
Senator, lastly, I'm over time already, but do you think the president wins this election right now, October 1st?
I do, but I think it's very close. I think it is incredibly volatile. Both sides, you look at the debate that we had this week, I don't think either side moved. The left is enraged and energized. Every leftist in America is going to show up. They're going to have massive, massive turnout. The big question is, does everybody else show up? Does the right show up? Do libertarians show up? Does the common sense middle show up? If the answer to those are yes, we win. And what the left is trying to do is get people to say, well, yes, I may agree with some of the policies, but I don't like this or that or the other about the president. I don't like what he tweets. I don't like that he interrupted the debate. So maybe I'll just stay home. If people do that, that's how we wake up in the nightmare of a Biden, Schumer, Pelosi government, and the damage those three would do in 2 years would exceed the damage Barack Obama did in 8 years. And so I'm spending every waking day fighting to help the president get reelected, to hold our majority in the Senate, and to retake the House. And it's one of the reasons why I'm spending so much time telling people about the book, One Vote Away, because it really does help you understand that the stakes of this election are not just 4 years, they're 40 years and 100 years, and the rights that we have, our kids and grandkids have.
Senator, thanks so much. Congratulations. One Vote Away is out there. It's top 10 on Amazon right now. It's likely to stay. Senator, thank you.
Appreciate it. God bless.